to the historic Ocean House, a luxurious hotel that pays homage to New England's golden age of hospitality, with timeless elegance and renewed civility. This treasured resort is the setting of our special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series, each program featuring nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation, hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to partner with the Ocean House to present this ongoing series, which brings you the best and the brightest of the literary world. Now, let's take you to the Ocean House.
Acclaimed as the Oliver Sacks of fiction and the Michael Crichton of brain science, Lisa Genova is the New York Times bestselling author of Still Alice, Left Neglected, Love Anthony, Inside the O'Briens, and Remember, The Science of Memory and the Art of Forgetting. Still Alice was adapted into an Oscar-winning film starring Julianne Moore, Alec Baldwin, and Kristen Stewart. Lisa graduated valedictorian from Bates College with a degree in biopsychology and holds a Ph.D. in neuroscience from Harvard University. She is featured in the documentary films To Not Fade Away and Have You Heard About Greg? And her TED Talks on Alzheimer's disease and memory have been viewed over 11 million times. Welcome, Lisa. That may have increased since I pulled this bio. Lisa will be in conversation this evening with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Deborah's latest book, Reef Road, was a national bestseller, named one of the best books of 2023 by Kirkus Reviews, and was an Indie Next pick by the American Booksellers Association. Her forthcoming book, Best Boy, is available starting February 24th, 2026. You can pre-order now. She began as an actress on All My Children and in multiple films before transitioning to the role of story editor at Miramax Films, developing Emma and early versions of Chicago and A Wrinkle in Time. With her husband Chuck, Deborah restored the Avon Theater, Ocean House Hotel, Deer Mountain Inn, United Theater, Martin House Books, and numerous other Main Street revitalization projects in both Rhode Island and the Catskills. Lisa and Deborah will now discuss Lisa's latest book, More or Less Maddie. After the discussion, we will open it up to questions, so if you please raise your hand, we'll run you a microphone so we can capture your question for folks listening in the future. And that is all for me. Without any further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Lisa Genova and Deborah Goodrich Royce.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, Lisa. I'm so glad you're here. And with your beautiful daughter, your very smart daughter.
Yes.
You're still with us, yes.
Yes.
We were talking about our beloved family members who accompany us sometimes on book tour, and jokingly, not so jokingly, if they could give our talks, right?
Yeah.
One of these days I'm going to send my husband out to do it.
Right.
So, the brain.
Yes.
Why the brain? Let's start there before we go into the novel. What drew you into this fascination with the human brain?
Yeah, so I was very much a math and science girl in high school, and then going into college I knew I wanted to be a scientist, and I was really interested in biology, like how does our body work? And I was taking courses in biology, and then I took a course in what was called physiological psychology at the time. It would now be called neuroscience because I'm that old. But yeah, as soon as, so it was like, it clicked as, oh, isn't this the most fascinating thing ever, right? Because the heart is a pump and the kidney's a filter, and that's interesting. But the brain is the biology responsible for your ability to think, remember your moods, your desires, your personality, your ability to speak, understand language. It was, and about the same time that I took that biology course, I also read a book called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks. Yeah, right? And so for those of you who didn't just say yes, yes, Oliver Sacks is a neurologist, or was a neurologist. He's no longer with us. And this book is basically a collection of short stories. They're all true about really interesting neurological patients that he's treated over the years. And so it's interesting because it was like, oh, I'm learning the biology, but I'm also learning the human side, right? It's the neurological condition and the human condition that Oliver was so good at. And that really has become sort of what I've transitioned to, because I did go into research. I did become a scientist, and then I did what all neuroscientists do. They become novelists.
Exactly. So I'm going to date myself. And I'm actually, well, it doesn't date me because my children are also fans. I'm a huge Gene Wilder fan. And I think of the human brain, I think of Young Frankenstein when he sends Igor off to get a brain. Yeah. And Igor, for the creature he's creating, and Igor comes back with the brain of Abby Normal. Does anybody else remember this? Speaking of Oliver Sacks,
Yes.
you have been called the Oliver Sacks of fiction and the Michael Crichton of brain science. Do you like those comparisons?
I do, and I wish there were women in my, right? It's like, oh,
So-
I'm compared to men, all right, but yeah.
So that's more of a but than an and. No, it's an and, I guess.
I like it. I respect and admire both of those writers and humans. And you know what I think? I wish that they were women, but maybe I'll be in some woman's bio someday.
I suspect so.
Yeah.
Cheers to that. So, More or Less Maddie, has anybody read it yet? You're going to enjoy this.
Oh my gosh,
very
thank you.
much. No spoilers. How would you describe this book?
I would say that this is a story about a young woman who has one foot in adulthood. She's just finished her first year at NYU, and she's sort of had trouble finding her place there. The first year didn't go very well for her. Its classes are harder than they were in high school. Her boyfriend broke up with her twice. She hasn't really found her passion or her circle of friends there, and she was probably depressed that first year, but didn't go seek help. Summer comes around and schedule is back in place. Mom's making the meals. She's getting daily exercise by riding her bike to work. She is sleeping well. Her routine is in place, and she feels better. She's back together with the boyfriend too. So she's happy again, feels good. Gets back to school in the fall, and the depression is back, and it's heavier and it's harder, and she's having a hard time motivating to do anything or liking anything she used to like. But everything is fine, so she can't really understand why she doesn't feel okay. So she actually goes to get help. She's at risk of failing out of NYU. The dean has said if you don't get your grades up, you're going to be asked to leave. And so she goes and asks for an excuse for papers that are overdue and a test or some absences. And she gets the written excuse, but she also gets a prescription for an antidepressant. And so this is the beginning of the story. The antidepressant, if what's going on in your brain is depression, unipolar depression, that antidepressant might help you. If what's going on in your brain is bipolar disorder, this antidepressant will unmask your first manic episode. And so the story is about being unexpectedly diagnosed with something so big and chaotic and overwhelming at an age where you're just trying to figure out your identity. Like you're just trying to figure out who you are beyond the rules and expectations and the opinions and traditions of the house you grew up in. And then in swoops this massive diagnosis, which because it's called a mental illness, like the other mental illnesses, it's saying, now this is who you are. This is the sum total of your identity. So this book is really, I think, about Maddie's journey of trying to figure out the distinction between I am bipolar and I have bipolar.
Right, and you do use that language in the book.
Yeah.
So I'm not a scientist,
Yeah.
but I am very interested in why the onset of what we call mental illness very often comes in those college years, and why doesn't it come on at puberty, for example, when you're really undergoing more physiological changes in the body at such a rapid level. I, as a non-scientist, would think that's sort of logical that these things would happen then. But yet, for the various people I've known, for whom this has happened, it really is that going away. What is it about that rupture, that going away, the new life, that seems to me like a trigger or a precipitating event?
So the biggest, most honest answer is we don't know, right? So, I mean, we understand, of all the body parts of you, we understand the least about the brain. And we understand even less about conditions that are called mental illness. I keep saying that, by the way, because the term mental illness is made up. There's no neuroanatomical, neurophysiological, neurochemical reason to call one brain condition a mental illness and another one a condition or a disorder or a disease. It's interesting because, like, you don't say I am Alzheimer's disease. You don't say I am a traumatic brain injury, but you will say I'm depressed, I'm bipolar, I'm schizophrenic. But to your point, so that hasn't been studied so much, your exact question, but understanding what I understand is, so I just alluded to it a little bit. So what we know about a lot of the brain disorders is one of the triggers that can knock you off balance. So the brain wants to be in balance. It wants to be in what we call homeostasis. And one of the things that can, the biggest trigger for most mental illnesses is a disruption in what we say sleep hygiene. Your sleep gets out of whack. And for some folks who are vulnerable, and by the way, all of us are vulnerable to lack of sleep. If you get a horrible night's sleep, you're going to have a hard time focusing today. You're going to have a hard time creating new memories today. You're going to make mistakes. Like losing sleep is detrimental to your optimal functioning in all kinds of ways. Your immune system, your cardiovascular, on and on. But if you have something going on in your brain like bipolar disorder, and you start losing sleep, you start getting 5 hours a night instead of 8, or if you start like pulling an all-nighter for an exam, right? Or you're partying all night, right? As young people do. Oh, my parents I don't have a bedtime anymore. I'll stay up all night. That their brains are more exquisitely sensitive to that lack of sleep, and it can be enough to deregulate. So bipolar disorder is an impairment in your brain's ability to regulate things like mood, sleep, emotion, thought, energy. So I think that to your point, like certainly people are diagnosed younger with all kinds of depression can certainly be younger than leaving the house, like into your late teens and 20s. But for a lot of those young people who leave the home and don't have the restrictions and the schedule, and it's eating, like at home you have parents who are, we mothers have been cooking the dinner. It's like, I have 3 children, there's still 2 at home, and I love them to pieces, and if I hear what's for dinner, even in my own head I have to think of what's for dinner. It's endless. But we feed you, right? And so you go off on your own, and maybe you skipped dinner, or you had ice cream instead of dinner, or you're like, you drank beer instead of dinner, so you're not taking care of your homeostasis, your balanced sleep, diet, exercise, and stress. Like the stress levels can be overwhelming when you're out there, and you don't have the nest of home to make you feel safe, and stress can be a big trigger as well.
So is it a good and productive and fruitful environment for young people, or is there a better way? Like in Europe, for example, very often people of that age don't go away to college. They live at home, they go to large universities in their towns. They're just, everybody's virtually a day student in Europe. They don't have the campus experience that we revere here.
Yeah, well, some people thrive in it. Like it's not an exact recipe for like going away means you're going to end up with bipolar disorder for sure. I mean, it's like it's about 2% of our population is diagnosed with bipolar.
2.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of folks like 1 in 50 people. So how many are we here tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, how many people here know or love someone or know of someone who has this? It's hiding in plain sight, is what I say. And so one of the reasons I wrote this book is to give people a way in to talk about it, right? Because there's so much stigma and taboo and shame around this. And if we don't have the familiarity or the language or a story, there's not a way in to talk about it. We feel like we can't. And then that secrecy breeds further shame. And so I've seen, when I started with Still Alice, I wasn't planning, I didn't know I'd become a full novelist. I knew I was writing that book. But then when I saw the power and the magic of story to facilitate conversation, and conversation really does fuel social change. Like it allows people to be brought back into belonging. Like, oh, we can talk about this, and it's not so scary if you can speak it.
So let's talk about fiction versus nonfiction. Alice McDermott, who's an extraordinary novelist and a nonfiction writer, she has a book that's called What About the Baby, which it is sort of generally is evocative of, was it Chekhov who said if you introduce a gun in the first act of a play, it has to go off by the third act, or everybody's going to wonder, what about the gun? Well, what about the baby's a similar thing if you have someone pushing a baby carriage. But she talks about the difference between writing fiction and writing nonfiction. And in nonfiction, you are compelled to include everything, every single fact, every single detail, every single researched bit. Whereas in fiction, it is really for the writer, because the sky's the limit in fiction, you could include virtually anything, you have to winnow it, and you have to put a little bit of a box around it, and that can be a great exercise. My own mother's best friend was murdered when my mother was 12. She was stabbed 36 times at home. It was an unsolved crime. My mother was supposed to be there that night. So I am very interested in being next door to violent crime. You know, Dominic Dunn wrote a lot about it, etc. When I explored it in writing, I explored it through fiction. I didn't want to write about that real girl and that real girl's family. It wasn't my interest. I wanted to talk about conferred trauma that we carry. So I've blathered on in a long way, but I'd love to hear your thoughts about why you choose to explore these very deep and scientific concepts through fiction instead of non.
Yeah, I love this question. It started accidentally and it's continued intentionally. So it started because my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and as the neuroscientist in my family, I read everything I could about this disease so that we could be educated and we could best take care of her. And this was, back in the late 90s. And so I read the scientific research papers. I read the clinical textbooks on disease management. I read the nonfiction self-help books like the 36-Hour Day. And I learned a lot, and it was helpful. But I was left still really uncomfortable around my grandmother's symptoms of dementia. Like, she didn't know who I was anymore, and that was upsetting. And she didn't know she was in her own home or recognize her face in the mirror, and she would talk to plastic baby dolls as if they were real, and she would want to go home, but she was already home. And I would get very uncomfortable and upset and heartbroken. And I'd often leave the room. I'd feel so uncomfortable around her Alzheimer's, I would walk away. And what I recognized is like, wow, isn't this interesting? I feel so bad for her. I feel so heartbroken for her. I don't really know how to feel with her. And that's the distinction between sympathy and empathy. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? I need a novel. Fiction is where we have the chance to walk in someone else's shoes and feel what it feels like to live their lived experience. Like, I had all of this academic and intellectual information, but I didn't know what it felt like to be her. And she was so far along into the disease at that point, she couldn't have that kind of coherent conversation with me about it. And so I thought, oh, I need a novel written from the perspective of the person who has this. And at the time, there wasn't one. And so that's why I wrote that book. And I've continued because I see the magic in, like, if you don't know anyone with Alzheimer's, if we were talking still, Alice, or if you don't know anyone with bipolar disorder, you're not going to pick up a nonfiction book about it. Like, that's homework, that's heavy, that's like a very specific topic that isn't on your radar, right? But you might pick up a novel, oh, that's interesting. It's a way in, like, story is a way in to explore someone else's lived experience that might be very different from you. But then again, it's a very different experience. Like, my mother's friend wasn't murdered, but I might read that story. Like, you might not know someone with Alzheimer's, but you might read that story. And then you're learning about what it might feel like to be them, and it's that common human condition. It's like, oh, I can see me in them. It's humanizing.
So what you just said, so Still Alice, I saw the movie and I didn't read the book at that time, and I didn't know anyone with Alzheimer's, and I will never forget the scene, and I'd like to know if it's in the book as well, when Julianne Moore goes into the house, I think it's their house, and she can't find the bathroom. It horrified me. It was so visceral, her
confusion,
despair at not being able to find the bathroom. Is
and
that
the
in the book?
humiliation and yes.
Yeah. Oh, brutal. Just brutal. And maybe also because it's her point of view, it's not from the point of view of the husband or a child. It's even more impactful.
Yep. Yes, and that was part of the magic too that I discovered. Is like, oh, a lot of books that are written about this tend to be from the point of view of the caregiver.
Right.
And so it's staying in the seat of the person who has it and writing from that point of view every time. Sometimes I also include a caregiver, like with Every Note Played, I did the ex-wife who becomes his caregiver. And so her point of view, and then his point of view, who has ALS. But I always give you the point of the view of the person with it, because it's gonna probably feel uncomfortable at times, but I'm gonna keep you there. I'm gonna keep you close to that experience so that you feel it, because it changes you. It really helps change us
I've never forgotten
to feel empathy instead of sympathy, and so when you feel sympathy for someone, oh, I feel bad for you. Like, it keeps us emotionally detached. It's a way of otherizing. Like, oh, you have Alzheimer's, like, poor you, but I'm different from you. I'm over here, I'm safe. Like, you have Alzheimer's, poor you, I'm not you. Empathy is feeling with you. It collapses that emotional distance. It would have allowed me to stay in the room with my grandmother, because I would have been able to feel what she's feeling and learn to be comfortable there. Like, the books, while the topic can be uncomfortable, and that bathroom scene and Still Alice, like, wow, that's so uncomfortable. But when you live through it, you've turned the page and you're like, well, I didn't die from that discomfort, right? It's like, then that's an important muscle for us to exercise as humans. Like, can we be comfortable being uncomfortable for a minute to witness someone else's life?
So that's a really important question. I'm going to say, unscientifically, it is my belief that earlier generations were much more comfortable with close-up discomfort. They had people born at home, die at home. They had the bodies shown at home. You know, they lived closer with harder truths. We live in a much more emotionally sterile world, in a way. I mean, we have news coming in, but
I don't know. Yes and no. Yes, I'm immediately thinking to death. Like, we don't see death in the United States. Like, it used to be that people died at home, and now it's like the majority. It's Atul Gawande wrote about this in Being Mortal. That it's well over 80% of us will die like behind a curtain in a hospital bed, and so we're disconnected from that part of life. But I in terms of like being emotional, I don't know. I would feel like in previous generations, like you don't speak anything, like you don't share emotions, like you don't, like men certainly aren't allowed to be emotional about anything, and women weren't allowed to say a lot. I like the sharing. I feel like the older generations, like no, they would never go to therapy. Right? I think the younger generations are like, getting more available to
There's that.
to understand and speak and self-reflect and speak what they feel. Also, just to put this on perspective too, like average life expectancy in the United States in 1900 was 47.
Right.
Like we live a lot longer now. I think that there's more. I think that the younger generations have more time to figure out more than previous generations did. Like, right, if average life expectancy was 47, I mean, as a woman, and there's no contraception, you were having babies till you died, practically.
And you probably died of it.
And true. Yeah.
Go on Ancestry.com. Your ancestor John was married to, Sarah, had 10 children, she dropped dead, and he brought in Martha, right?
Right. I mean, so I don't know that they had a lot of time for
self-reflection.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
Ocean House, located on the scenic Atlantic Ocean in historic Watch Hill, is one of only 14 triple 5-star resorts in the world, with superb guest accommodations, a world-class spa, dining, and events. At 4 on Saturday afternoon, November 22nd, Ocean House is hosting another of its popular Ocean House Author Series, hosted by multiple best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Enjoy complimentary wine and light bites as you listen to a panel discussion with renowned authors Genevieve Wheeler-Brown, Amanda Reynal, Christopher Spitzmiller, and Ashley Whitaker, sharing their designs to refresh and update your home and garden. Held at the breathtaking Ocean House, this exciting event begins at 4 p.m. Saturday, November 22nd. For information and tickets, go to oceanhouseevents.com. That's oceanhouseevents.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Authors Series on WCRI.
So let's talk about self-reflection.
Okay.
That is something I've thought a lot about since I've read this book. There have been 3 people in my life with bipolar disorder, and not a one of them had an arc of acceptance.
Okay.
So I've thought a lot about that. I would compare, again, what we call mental illness in many ways to addiction and how it affects the other. If we're talking about the other, being in relationship with someone who's addicted is often like being in relationship to someone who's mentally ill. Unlike cancer, where a cancer patient, you can have a discussion. So Lisa, this is a diagnosis. What would you like to do? And we can talk about it.
Right.
Often with those 2 types of friends / family members, there can be a rejection. I don't have that. I don't have that. That's not what I have.
Right.
So for the other, it can be a bit of a frustration and a wall. I'd love to hear what you think about all that.
Yeah, it's really tough. Like if you compare it to cancer or even something like diabetes, heart disease, it's tough. So, and I gained such an appreciation for how hard this is while doing the research for this book and getting to know all the people I know who have this and their family members. So I got all those points of view, like people who have it and their loved ones, the psychiatrists who treat them, the psychologists who treat them. So with bipolar disorder, there's no blood test and there's no brain scan.
Right.
So if you're Maddie and you've just had your first manic episode, and that's how you get a diagnosis. It's because if you're just experiencing depression, which you can for a period of time, it's just bouts of depression, then no one would know that this is bipolar disorder because there's no blood test or brain scan. But she's had a manic episode and now it's a conversation with a psychiatrist she's never met before, right? So this is a doctor who's new to you. You don't know this guy or this woman. And it's, you've had a brain scan, there's no tumor, there's nothing there. You've had blood work done, there's no reason for this. There's no, cocaine on board or there's no drugs. And then it's a series of questions like, tell me about your sleeping, tell me about your thoughts, what have you been doing? Oh, you've been spending thousands of dollars on having sex with multiple partners, which isn't characteristic, and you're texting people all night long with these flight of ideas. Like, for her, she's like, I'm writing Taylor Swift's memoir, and I'm writing a 1-hour comedy special for Netflix where she's never done comedy before. And so you have like grandiose thoughts and lots of swagger. So it's very apparent to the psychiatrist who's very used to seeing this, what he's looking at. But for you, this is brand new, and there's no blood test and no brain scan. So you get the diagnosis, which is a tough diagnosis to get. Again, it's like identity shaking. And what is this going to mean for my ability to be loved and have a career and, thrive in my life? You're put on medications that are not specific to what you have because we don't understand the biology of bipolar disease enough. And so the drugs that are used to treat it were either serendipitously discovered, like lithium. We don't know how lithium works to treat bipolar disorder, or they're drugs borrowed from that treat other conditions. So borrowed from drugs that treat epilepsy, for example. So they're anticonvulsants. And because they're not specific to what's actually going on in your brain, they act on a lot of other receptors that aren't specific to what's happening. And so you get a lot of side effects. So these drugs are not fun to be on. You're probably going to gain a lot of weight. You're going to have a hand tremor. You're going to be thirsty all the time and have to pee all the time. You might feel nauseous. You might have diarrhea chronically. So this is not fun to be on these meds. And so you imagine 6 months goes by and Maddie hasn't been depressed and she hasn't had another manic episode. So the meds are probably working, but she feels lousy and she's thinking to herself, well, I haven't had any, I feel, other than feeling nauseous and I've gained 20 pounds and my hand's shaking, I don't feel like there's anything wrong. I don't feel like I have a mental illness. Maybe I wasn't sleeping much leading up to my breakdown. Maybe I was just I hadn't slept. Anyone would act weird if they hadn't slept in days. So I was like, I had insomnia for a little bit. Or maybe I was just overwhelmed and stressed and I had a breakdown and it was a one-time thing. You know what? I'm going to try going off these and see how I do. It seems like a very reasonable experiment to me, is what I've learned in talking to everyone. And all the psychiatrists say that it usually takes people about 3 times running that experiment before they say, all right, as hard as the meds can be, I'm going to be committed to staying on them, to using my family and circle of friends as like, I'm going to listen to them when they, like, we're going to have rules around, like when they say, we've noticed you've, been talking really fast and interrupting me constantly and you seem a little revved up. Like, we're going to call the psychiatrist and look into adjusting the meds, the dosage, or maybe different combinations. Because it's not a science, it's an art. Like one doctor said, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. So it needs to be a collaboration with your doctor and your family, but you don't get there overnight, because why would you believe a conversation from a doctor you've only met once when there's no proof of this? So I have so much more space for like being gentle and empathy when someone says, like, it's like, oh, so-and-so ended up hospitalized again, or so-and-so was arrested last night, it was a mess, like, is back in a hospital for treatment. Oh, what happened? Oh, well, she went off her meds. I think prior to writing this book, I would have had the judgment like, well, she brought it on herself. She should have stayed on the meds. And now it's like, oh, like, well, of course she went off the meds. They're hard. That makes sense.
So these doctors you've spoken to say that a high percentage of people do within 3 episodes sort of accept the diagnosis?
On average, it takes
really?
like 3 times of ending up hospitalized. Yeah, they've gone off, they've done chaotic things, and then after the 3rd time, it's like exhausting. It costs a ton of money usually. Like, I wrote this book from this family is privileged. Like, it takes a level of privilege in this country to navigate the healthcare system to get this diagnosis. You can imagine how many people are out there not diagnosed and not on meds and blowing up their lives over and over again.
And the link between mental illness and addiction, I think, is profound, because people do self-medicate.
Yes, there's a lot of like untangling of that too, right?
Yeah.
So again, like if you've got this disorder where your brain doesn't know how to regulate your mood, your energy, your emotion. It's like, well, if I'm getting too up and I don't want to be that up, alcohol's a depressant. That can bring me back down. Like, oh, I'm getting a little depressed, cocaine would bring me up. So people will dabble with self-medicating because those are levers that can move that energy and mood dial like the brain is actually doing on its own. It's swinging one way. Like mania, like you would think the person might be on amphetamine or cocaine because they're so revved up and like tons and tons of energy. So yes, a lot. And if you have a propensity for addiction, if you have that predisposition and you're self-medicating, now you might end up with an addiction as well. So there's a lot of what's called comorbidity there.
Right. And I think we're in a medical system where many medications are very good. It has been my experience, and I've seen with people, that doctors prescribe very quickly all sorts of things, amphetamines, on a little questionnaire for do you fidget?
ADD, for ADD,
yeah, do you fidget? Do you have trouble concentrating? I think a lot of young women who have body dysmorphia get themselves on the amphetamines very quickly. I think they give out things like Xanax and all sorts of things, as this school clinic does, which triggers Maddie's first episode. I believe many of these medications are good and life-saving, but it's complicated.
Yeah, there's nuance there that that a lot of physicians aren't being sensitive to. It should be more like there needs to be an understanding as to who you are, your family history. Like it's always, you have to weigh the risk versus the benefit with any medication. And so if they don't understand the full picture, we could be taking on too much risk for the benefit, right? So if what you have is bipolar disorder, and it's not been diagnosed yet, and you're either being prescribed meds like an amphetamine, or if you're out there, taking amphetamines, they can be the triggers that trigger an episode.
And I think all of our research now is or maybe not even research, but our focus is on the opioids and the fentanyl, and not so much that other end of the spectrum, that all these other things that are being prescribed.
Yeah.
So you've written about Alzheimer's, you've written about ALS, you've written about bipolar disorder and other brain, what do they call them?
Huntington's, autism, traumatic brain injury.
Neuro differences.
Yeah.
Is there something tickling you right now to look at?
Yes. So a few things. So I wrote a nonfiction book, which I love writing fiction more than writing nonfiction, actually. But that one I decided to write because I was traveling the world talking to people about Alzheimer's and how they can understand what it feels like, and how that's helpful as a caregiver, and how to caregive, and how to understand this disease. And after every talk without fail, no matter what country I was in, women would follow me into the ladies' room or wait at the end of the book signing line and say, okay, so I'm always forgetting people's names, and every time I walk into a room, I'm like, why did I come in here? And I'm like, where did I put my phone, my keys, my glasses, where did I park my car? And they're just looking at me, expecting me to diagnose them with Alzheimer's in the ladies' room. And I was like, oh, those are all normal kinds of forgetting. Your brain isn't designed to remember everything. It's memory's not perfect. And so I would explain to them why you walked into the kitchen and didn't know why you went in there, what happens and how to find it. And I'd see the relief wash over them, oh my God, thank God. And so I thought, all right, I gotta stop helping one woman at a time in the ladies' room and write this down. So that was why I wrote that nonfiction book. And it came out in 2021, and I am still out there talking to folks about how we remember and why we forget, and it's so helpful to people. Because life is stressful enough. You don't need to stress about a memory impairment you think you secretly have when you don't have one. I want you to protect your brain, and I want you to do brain healthy things, but so much of your everyday anxiety over what you're forgetting isn't abnormal at all. It's normal. And so I'm going to write another nonfiction book because the next one that everybody's worried about is attention. So I'm writing a nonfiction book about attention right now. But the next novel is going to be, it's going to be about addiction and a brain condition called Korsakoff syndrome. Yeah, so.
Well, I like the name, but it's probably not good.
No, it's not. You don't want Korsakoff syndrome.
What is that?
In some folks, and we don't know how to identify who this would be. We don't have a genetic test for this at this point. In some folks who have an alcohol addiction, the alcohol inhibits your small intestines from absorbing and producing vitamin B1, so niacin, so B1. You end up with a B1 deficiency. And if this goes on extreme enough, there's a part of your brain, and it's in your thalamus called your mammillary bodies, it will die off. Those neurons will no longer exist. And that part of the brain is an essential relay station for forming new memories. So there's a sort of a prodromal syndrome, a syndrome that precedes Korsakoff's, a kind of like a warning bell. It's called Wernicke's aphasia. So folks who might show up in the ER just not making any sense, and they have strange eye movements, and the ER doctor will immediately be like, you need a B1 shot now. And then they'll tell this person you need to continue to take B1 supplements, and you gotta stop drinking. You cannot drink anymore. And so if you can manage that, then you will be saved from Korsakoff's. But if you can't manage that, or if you don't end up in the ER with the B1 shot, you proceed to Korsakoff's. And then you become somewhat like that character in the movie Memento, who tattooed himself because he couldn't remember minute to minute. So you can't remember any new people. You can't remember what just was said or what you just did from then on. You can remember what happened in the past, but you can't remember anything long-term going forward. So I met a woman who has this. When I was writing Remember, I originally thought I would include some chapters of interesting amnesics, like interesting amnesias. And so I interviewed this woman who was 40 and she had Korsakoff's and she's in assisted living and she talks really, really fast, and I think it's because she's worried she won't remember the beginning of the sentence by the end. She says, if I leave the room, I don't know what room, I know I've been here a while, but I can't remember what room I'm in. She says she writes everything down, like I had cereal for breakfast at 8 a.m. My doctor's name is this, and she writes on the walls, she writes on the pillowcases, they let her write on everything. But she's just trying to keep track of every day and like who I am and yeah. So I think, weirdly, I think this book's gonna be a mystery. Because, right, every day is a mystery to her. She has to be a detective in her own life. And I think that something has happened just prior to her ending up with Korsakoff's that she needs to find out. But she can't, you also don't remember the short period of time leading up to this. There's like a window of your recent past that's gone.
And do you have old memories?
Yes.
Like Alzheimer's
Yes, but she was an
patients?
alcoholic, which also means this is a very unreliable narrator. I haven't started writing this book yet. It's kind of fun to talk about. She will have lied a lot to cover for what her drinking, and she also had blackouts. So she's like in Korsakoff's it's called confabulation, where you don't really intend to lie. You're not you're not a bad person. You're doing what a lot of us do, which is when you're trying to tell the story of what happened. Your brain is not a video camera. You're not recording what happened. When you remember something, you're pulling pieces from what you observed and felt and saw, and you tell the story. So you often add information in there to like make it make sense. And so we kind of all do this to some extent anyway, but when you have Korsakoff, you don't know what happened, so you just make shit up. I think it will be confusing to us, and I haven't written a mystery yet, but I think it will be fun because there will be I could easily send you down a way that's not the right way. And,
Extraordinary. I have a story to share with you off the record.
We'll take a short break and be back with the Ocean House Author Series here on WCRI.
Ocean House, located on the scenic Atlantic Ocean and historic Watch Hill, is one of only 14 triple five-star resorts in the world, with superb guest accommodations, a world-class spa, dining, and events. At 4 on Saturday afternoon, November 22nd, Ocean House is hosting another of its popular Ocean House Author Series, hosted by multiple best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. Enjoy complimentary wine and light bites as you listen to a panel discussion with renowned authors Genevieve Wheeler-Brown, Amanda Reynal, Christopher Spitzmiller, and Ashley Whitaker, sharing their designs to refresh and update your home and garden. Held at the breathtaking Ocean House, this exciting event begins at 4 p.m. Saturday, November 22nd. For information and tickets, go to oceanhouseevents.com. That's oceanhouseevents.com.
And we're back with the Ocean House Author Series on WCRI.
I think you have a lot of questions. So wait for the microphone to come to you because this will be on the radio. If you ever want to hear it again, it's on WCRI. They'll run it twice. And then you can go on the web. They have, like a podcast. You can listen to it when you want to listen to it, which is kind of cool. So raise your hand if you want to talk about any of these things. How many microphones do we have going around?
While you're going on, can I just say, every book event I ever do, I see a couple of men. There's a couple of that's good men, but it's women who read, and it's women who read, primarily women who read fiction, overwhelmingly women.
Yeah.
And if fiction is the place where we regularly practice empathy and regularly practice and take on what might it feel like to be you and you and you, then we got to get men to read more fiction. It's the women who are developing emotional intelligence throughout life because we continue to read fiction in particular. So invite your men in your lives to keep reading fiction, because I think it would help us as a society.
And well done to the men who are here.
Yes, yes.
All of you.
Yeah.
All right, questions. Who has the mic? Oh, stand up, yeah.
Hi, I just want to say, first of all, I love Simone. I think she's such a beautiful character, and I love the worthy tattoo. I don't think that gives anything away. So I just wanted to say that at the outset.
You.
I was curious if you would speak a little bit about giving Maddie the desire to be a stand-up comedian, because we've heard so much. I mean, very recently Bill Hader said he didn't want to do the SNL celebration because of the tremendous anxiety that he deals with. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious if you are also looking to explore the connection between creativity and challenges mentally, I'll call it that.
So again, I've had this question a lot of like, oh, do comedians tend to have bipolar disorder? Like, is there something about like having bipolar disorder that makes someone want to become a comedian? And there's no evidence to suggest that. Again, it's so prevalent. It's 1 in 50 people. So I think that in some ways, you know, the Bill Haders, although he's not bipolar, doesn't have bipolar, the comedians you've heard of who do have it, and the best one I know is Taylor Tomlinson. If you don't know her yet, you want to know Taylor Tomlinson, go find her on Netflix. Their job is to stand on a stage and talk about themselves, usually, right? So like your accountant isn't probably telling you about his bipolar disorder, right? Like your dentist isn't going to tell you about her bipolar disorder. So I think that the career itself lends to us just knowing what's going on with them. For some folks with bipolar disorder who do have actual talent, like who are painters or writers, as you might be swinging into a manic episode, and things are going to get chaotic and nonsensical, and you're going to probably have delusions and maybe hallucinations if you have bipolar 1. There's this what they call, like I think Maddie calls it mania light. It's hypomania. It's like the on-ramp to mania, but you're not there yet. So like you don't need any sleep. Maybe you sleep an hour or 2 a night, but you wake up and you're not tired, or you don't sleep at all and you're not tired. And you can be really prolific in that state. Like there's guardrails are down, you've got so much confidence, like you're willing to try things because you're great at everything. But if you're a painter, like maybe you're painting all night. If you're writing, you're getting so many words down. So for folks who are creative and they have bipolar disorder, they might be productive for a bit in those phases. I decided to make Maddie an aspiring comedian for a few reasons. One, I knew this book was going to be heavy at times, and I wanted the chance to introduce some levity. I think that we humans do use humor to bridge uncomfortable topics, right? And to sort of connect with each other there. I just also really loved I also wanted her to pick something that was outside of normal. Right? Because so much, especially for a young woman, there's so much pressure to be normal. Don't step outside those expectations, right? Or the world is going to judge you and it's going to be harder for you. And so I thought, you know, if she drops out of school and wants to be a comedian, and like, so she's going to be in bars, like this is not an office 9-to-5 job, right? This is not a stable life. So if we've got a condition that's all about stability and she's choosing something that's somewhat not stable, I liked the tension there. I really love the metaphor of it. So if you're a stand-up comic, I'm up here, and if I'm killing it, and you guys are laughing at all my bits, and like you're looking at me, and we feel connected, and you get it, it's the best feeling. It's like euphoric, and oh my God, it's this high that I want to chase again and again. It's kind of like mania. And if I'm bombing and you guys are just like, and you're looking down at your phones and no one's laughing and we're so disconnected and I just want to get the hell out of there, and it just feels like a death. It's awful. Every comedian I talked to said it was the worst feeling in the world. They just like depression. So I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? On stage and any given night, a comedian can swing to one end to the other. So I liked the literary metaphor of that.
Very much so. Okay.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and to the Ocean House for hosting this event. My question relates to your writing process, and if you could elaborate a little bit about that, and then maybe share with us, to the extent that you have, a favorite book that you've written. I'm sure it's like children, you can't choose just one, but I'll ask you to nonetheless. So
that's
you.
Great. My daughter, who's here, will say, like, I've said this to them, like I know you're not supposed to choose a favorite child, but on any given day, I'm like, I have one. Like, who wants to win that title? Like, gotta work for it, kiddos. So my process is, I always front load with research. So I read everything I can about the subject, and then I reach out to people who are in that world. So, and I usually start with the medical professionals first, because they then will reach out to their patients, or know of patient communities that I can be invited to and say, hello, this is what I'm up to. Would anyone like to help share? I also now I'm a kind of a known thing, so I can post on social media, like, I'm writing about bipolar next, and then whoosh, I get the DMs. So I spend at least 6 months ahead of time not even thinking about what I'm gonna write. I'm just listening. So I'm talking to psychiatrists, I'm going to McLean Hospital in Belmont, I'm going to people's homes and listening to what they have to say, mothers of kids who have it, spouses of people who have it, at various, and also I'm looking to get various ages and phases of living with this. So I want people who've been newly diagnosed, someone who's been living with this for decades, people who've relapsed many times and ended up in the hospital, and people who have been stable for a long time. So I'm trying to understand the full breadth of experience with this. When I feel like I've got that, I'm like, okay, it's time to write. And I have been sort of percolating, who is this? I'm like, oh, comedian would be interesting, which, by the way, was another whole level of research that, like, so this happens with every book, like with Inside the O'Briens, like the dad's a police officer, so I was, shadowing a police officer, and I went on ride-alongs, and I was in touch with him every day, and then one of the characters was a ballerina, and I got to know a ballerina. So this one was comedians, so I interviewed Amy Schumer and Maria Bamford, are like the two most famous, and then a lot of other comedians along the way, and one who happens to have bipolar disorder and mentioned it in his stand-up in New York City. I was just randomly at that club that night. I'm like, well, you're a 2-for-1. Thank you very much. I'm going to interview you. And then I took a stand-up comedy writing class because I knew that I'd have to write Maddie's stand-up. I don't know how to write stand-up. I do now. But I didn't. I was like, I don't know, and I need to do that. So I took a stand-up comedy writing class out of Laughing Buddha Comedy in New York City, and I did a 5-minute set, which was terrifying. And it's funny, when I signed up to take the class, I was like, and there were all these other young people there who were real aspiring comics, and I was like, so I'm not an aspiring comedian. I actually am taking this class like as if I'm a 21-year-old, like it's for my character. So I'm taking this like as my 21-year-old character. And the teacher was like, no, you're not. You're taking this as the middle-aged lady that you are. Like, I was like, ugh. Because now I'm like, oh, now I have to write my own stuff. Like, ah. So I gave Maddie only one of my jokes from my 5-minute set, and it's the joke about her hating thongs. Like
I love that joke.
Yeah, thank you.
I hate thongs.
I hate thongs.
Awful.
That's my joke.
Does anybody in this room like thongs?
I mean, they're the
no,
worst.
it's universal.
They're awful. So I did that research on the comedy, and then it's the writing. So it's I borrowed this from Julia Cameron from The Artist's Way. It's called Morning Pages. And so I always start a notebook with a pen. And I do, about 3 pages of stream of consciousness, but never less than that, but sometimes more. And it's like, chapter 4, what happens next? I have no idea. Like, oh my God. Like, what if it's horrible? What if I can't finish the book? How am I going to finish this whole thing? What if everybody hates it? And I do less of that now, but there's still that. Every book is still oh my God, what am I doing? And then it's talking myself down. Lisa, you're not writing the whole book today. You're writing 4 pages today. Like, you can write 4 pages, and if they're horrible, you can delete them, but you can't edit nothing. I mean, you have to write something. What, are you not going to write the book? You're going to write the book. It's like crazy. And then, Maddie just did this, and her mother's that, and okay, so, and then I find a way in on the handwritten page, and then I move to the laptop. And I try to get, when I'm writing, I try to get 1,000 words in every day, 1,500 if I'm really cruising, but it's never really more than that. I got in that habit because I'm a single mom to kids, and I would finish before they're done with school and then get to it the next day. And it was actually great to not be able to write to sort of like, I've got nothing left. Like somebody else said this, and I'm borrowing it, but it might have been Stephen King. Like I always stop, like, oh, I gotta go pick someone up. I'm done. And it's like, oh, I'm in the middle of the chapter, but that's okay because I'm like downhill. I'm ready to go again the next day if that's the case. It's great, like, because then I show up and I'm like, I know where I'm going. Whereas like oftentimes like I'll finish a chapter and like that's great. Yay, I finished a chapter, that feels great. But then the next day it's like, oh, now what happens?
Starting
next?
all over again.
So I don't outline. I kind of, with this book, I knew where I was starting because I was out in Las Vegas with Maria Shriver raising money for studying Alzheimer's in women's brains. Yay. And while I was in Vegas, I don't regularly go to Vegas. I think I'd been there one other time. I'm there and I'm like, and I was doing research for this book and I was like, I could have a manic episode here in Vegas and no one would know. Like the book needs to open in Vegas with her having it's the fallout from that manic episode, and then we're going to go back and see how she got there. So I knew that to begin with, and I knew I wanted to end with her 5 minutes, what would be essentially her 5-minute set, communicating what it feels like to have bipolar, inviting you to be okay with it with her. So I knew that where I was starting, where I was ending, and that's pretty typical. I kind of know where I want to hit the landing, but I have no idea what happens in between, and I'm often surprised by what they do. And so yeah, it's probably like around 4 hours a day that I'm like just very focused. I used to write all of my books in Starbucks because I can't daydream there. It looked nuts, so I don't daydream. like it's very, very focused. And out on Cape Cod, where I live, our Starbucks didn't have Wi-Fi for the first many years. So it was like 1975. Like you just like can't be distracted really. But over the pandemic, I got a dog, and I just don't want to leave him home alone. So now I write at home. And I live on Cape Cod, and it's beautiful. Like there's saltwater marsh, and there goes a blue heron, and there's gorgeous, and there's tons of windows in my house. I write at my kitchen table facing a closet door. Because you don't want to, like, I could lose an hour staring at, like, daydreaming out the window. Like it's not there to daydream. People are like, oh, you live on Cape Cod, that's so romantic for writing. Like they think like I'm at the beach with like a margarita, and I'm like, no, I'm at my kitchen table, dog at my feet, closet door.
Looking at the closet.
Yeah.
All right, we have time for a couple more. Who's got the mic?
What did you say? Which is my favorite
Who's on
book?
the mic?
This one.
Okay.
I just have a really quick question. Your research is amazing. I can't wait to read the book. But in some of the research you did on depression, did you come across anything about, this sounds crazy, but the cold plunge and how it's helped people with depression a lot?
No, I haven't.
I would definitely, I won't go into it now, but I would definitely look into it. We know people that were severely depressed, had been to every doctor, they had the means, their whole life was falling apart, they had a huge successful life, and they were at their wits' end, and someone said, try the cold plunge. After 6 months, a couple months, feeling better, completely back to their life. No medication, depression was completely gone. So it's something worth looking into.
So,
it's an amazing thing.
Thank you for sharing that. I would like to add though, like, so while the example you just gave feels fairly harmless to me, like why not try it? Cold plunging can't hurt. That you don't know what, there are other things going on in that person's life that may have contributed to the alleviation of the depression, where they cold plunging with people and they were getting out of the house when they would normally stay in bed, but they're committed to getting out and going cold plunging, and now they're socializing, and that forces them to. I'm just saying, like this is not specific to you, and thank you for sharing it. This is more of a caveat based on the world we live in now. So many people, it's strange to me as a scientist and someone in the medical community where we see so many people, and I get this too, someone will say, I saw the cure for Alzheimer's on YouTube. And I'm like, No, like if there were a cure for Alzheimer's that was like replicated and it was shown to be safe and effective and verified and validated, you would hear about it from the Alzheimer's Association and Maria Shriver, and it would be not an obscure, let me just keep going. So like, when you hear about things, like I'm more concerned about people taking supplements, that they're like, oh, some influencer on Instagram told me that this is good for my brain. This is gonna save my memory. All of those folks out there who are telling you to take like supplements that are gonna protect your memory and protect you from Alzheimer's, they're lying to you and they're being sued. Okay, they're preying on like people's fears and vulnerability. So just be careful. Like if you hear of something that's like, oh, this is really good for treating something, like just make sure it's something that like look into it more. Who's saying it? Are there studies that verify it? It can't just be anecdotal. So thank you, but like just generally, just be careful like what you're willing to try.
Thank you so much for writing the book. I really enjoyed it. I just wanted you to comment on how you chose to portray the reaction of Maddie's mom and how she, sort of processed the whole diagnosis and the whole experience.
Yeah. So it's not everyone's read the book, but so I'll do a little of like, so if I make every character in the book like do the best right thing every time, like that's not, we need conflict, we need tension, we need people who are changed by what happens. And so I think with every book I've written, following a diagnosis, it's the person who was diagnosed and everyone in their orbit goes through the stages of grief over the life that they thought they were going to live that they're now not going to live. So, and they don't all go through the stages at the same time, at the same rate. And so so someone's usually in denial and someone else is in acceptance and someone else is angry and someone else is bargaining. Like there's different, like people aren't all there yet. And so for mom, like a lot of parents of kids who are going off to college, there's the desire to protect them, keep them safe. So she's a little, this is written from Maddie's point of view now. If we had mom's point of view, right? If I had gone back and forth and alternated, I think of my own kids, I'll be saying something with the best of intentions and it doesn't land in them that way. They're like, God, mom, like so controlling, like I got it. So I think that what we also, like mom's lived through this with her ex-husband. Like, so she is terrified of what could happen to her daughter because her ex-husband was, never diagnosed, not medicated, and they don't know where he is now. So she's, mom is operating in the beginning from a space of fear. Just like, I just don't want this to happen. And she says some things to her daughter that Maddie feels like mom's ashamed of me. And it is, I think, more a byproduct of her mom trying to get ahead of and worrying about what the world will judge her daughter. And she can't bear the thought of her daughter being judged unfairly and cruelly like that. But it comes off to Maddie as my mom is judging me. So there's a lot of moments of like misconnection. I love, this story is about the women. It's about Maddie's relationship with herself, her mom, her sister Emily, Simone, her grandmother. So I love how the women came around in this story. Yeah.
I do too.
Thank you.
Very much.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more, and then you can ask questions in the back.
So this is more of a comment about your book, Remember. We had a sister who passed away at the age of 56, initially diagnosed with Weinreich's encephalopathy, which you had just talked about, but through other testing, it was Pick's disease under the umbrella of FTD. And 16 years ago, there was no Bruce Willis, there was nobody, nobody. So in our quest to find help and take care of her, we always had it in the back of our minds, will this happen to me? Is this going to happen to me? Am I going to be okay? And when you walk into the room and you forgot. So there's a part in your book, Remember, where you said you're driving, I think, the Bourne Bridge.
Sagamore, yeah.
Okay, Sagamore. And you get home and you don't remember driving over the bridge.
It's 10 minutes later and I don't remember driving over the bridge.
But you made a very good point. And it's in order to make a memory, you have to be paying attention. So if you're thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner, or who you have to pick up, or this, that, the other thing, and you're driving the same route that you've driven over and over and over again, it becomes rote to you. So for me and my sister, the same thing. Now you made us realize that, oh, maybe we're not so bad. Maybe it's not happening to us. You know, maybe we're just normal and not paying attention. So I thank you for that book, because it really, really made me realize I'm okay.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
On that note, thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this special broadcast of the Ocean House Author Series with Deborah Goodrich Royce. Please tune in each month as we'll bring you a new Ocean House Author Series highlighting nationally best-selling and award-winning authors in a salon-style conversation. Hosted by Ocean House owner, actress, and best-selling author Deborah Goodrich Royce. WCRI is pleased to be partnering with the Ocean House to bring you this ongoing series highlighting the best and brightest of the literary world. Thank you once again for joining us. And in the words of Margaret Atwood, in the end, we all become stories.